The majority of people that come out of a toxic relationship often find that they are either an empath or a highly sensitive person. In today's video, I want to talk about what the difference is between empaths and highly sensitive people, as well as discuss what they can do to protect themselves from toxic personalities or energy vampires. If that's something that's interesting to you, watch this video. One thing I found interesting about empaths and highly sensitive people is the fact that while they're very similar and they share so many similar characteristics, they're not the same thing. They're not interchangeable. It kind of reminded me of how narcissists and sociopaths are very similar and yet different. Because while every sociopath is a narcissist, not every narcissist is a sociopath. And it's the same thing with empaths and highly sensitive people. While every empath is a highly sensitive person, not every highly sensitive person is an empath. So let's just talk about the differences for a moment. For example, a highly sensitive person, their thought process is different than people that aren't highly sensitive. There's been many studies that show that their brain just works differently. And they notice subtle things that the majority of people that are not highly sensitive just don't even bother noticing. So for example, let's just say somebody is handing a highly sensitive person something, right? The highly sensitive person, their thought process will not just notice that they're being handed something. They'll notice the stress in the person's body. They'll notice their facial expression. They'll try to determine the motive on how or why they're handing them something. They'll compare it to what they know about the person and how they normally act, what their normal facial expressions are, and they'll come up with some kind of conclusion as to what they think is going on. Somebody else will just say, okay, they just handed me this. So that's the difference. Their minds are always thinking deeper. They're noticing the obvious as well as the subtle things, and they're comparing all the time. So their brains are almost overworking, they're overactive. And that's why often they need time to recharge, to kind of have a little bit of alone time to recharge their batteries, because they're going all the time. They're also very observant of a person's feelings. An empath, the focus isn't as much on the way they think as much as it is on the way they feel. Empaths are very intuitive. They notice what's going on externally, but they're looking at what's going on inside of the person. They're very emotionally connected to themselves and other people, to the point that they can internalize the energy and feelings of those around them. One difference that I thought was very interesting when it comes to highly sensitive people and empaths is that an empath will naturally absorb the energy of someone else, and they'll internalize it to the point that they can be confused as to whose feelings they are. So if they're with somebody that's sad, even though the person is pretending to be happy, right? And they're putting a smile on their face and they're not talking about their sadness, the empath will feel that sadness, and if they're not a trained empath, will suddenly start feeling that sadness or pain or whatever the other person is feeling, and can be confused as to if it's their emotions or not. There's a confusion with highly sensitive people that takes place as well, but it's a little bit different. If a highly sensitive person is talking with somebody about a very painful event, let's say it's just something that was on the news, right? And it's a very painful occurrence that has happened. A highly sensitive person will feel a tremendous amount of pain. And rather than absorb the pain and get confused as if it's their own, they project their own internal pain of unresolved wounds, of things that they haven't really dealt with in the past. They will project that pain into those external circumstances, thinking that they're feeling the pain of the circumstance that they're talking about, and not realizing that they're projecting their pain into that event. I thought that was really, really interesting when I learned that. Okay, so that's a basic explanation of empaths and highly sensitive people. They have beautiful qualities. Both of them have beautiful qualities. They're givers, they're hard workers, they love to better themselves. They love to help others to better themselves. They are amazing listeners because they won't just hear your words. They will feel them along with you. They will care about your feelings. They are kind people. They don't like to hurt other people's feelings. They try to make everyone feel better around them. And so they have all of these beautiful qualities that make them shine. Narcissists and toxic people are attracted to shiny things because it gets in the way of their own shine. They want to be the ones to shine, right? So they see these people, they're attracted to them. They're attracted to them because they feed off of all of the giving qualities that the empath and the highly sensitive person have. They feed off of that to the point that by the end of a relationship with a narcissist, an empath or a highly sensitive person feels vacant, drained, as if there's nothing left inside of them. They don't realize that they have been in a relationship with somebody that is virtually an emotional vacuum that's just sucking all of those good qualities out of them. So I promised you in the beginning of this video that we would talk about ways to protect ourselves, because obviously we don't want to give up our good qualities just to be able to survive a world which is basically full of narcissistic and toxic people. We can't go live in a bubble, live on an island away from toxic people. They're everywhere. Okay, so since toxic people love to suck the life and the energy and the beautiful qualities out of empaths and highly sensitive people, I promised we would talk about some ways on what you can do to protect yourself, and I have 5 ways that you can do this. Rather than avoiding them, it's better to strengthen ourselves so that we can be around them without losing ourselves. So tip number 1. And this applies if it's not a romantic relationship, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a coworker. If you find yourself in a public situation where someone is affecting your energy, you maybe can't quite put your finger on it, but you feel something going on inside, like they're affecting your energy in some way. One very simple thing you can start to do to really connect to yourself, to feel empowered, is to focus on your breathing. No one has to know you're doing it. You just focus on your inhale and your exhale, slowing down your breath so that you feel more centered. And this is important to do because when we hold our breath, which is what we do when we're getting a little stressed, or we breathe shallow from our chest, negative energy winds up getting lodged inside of our body. Okay, so practice breathing, centering, and then if you have to move away from the person, don't worry or be overly concerned about hurting people's feelings. You don't have to do it rudely. You can simply excuse yourself for whatever reason and put some distance between yourself. If you feel your energy changes and feels better, then that's a really good indicative that person is just not a good energy for you, and you might want to spend time around other people while you're at that event. Number 2 is develop and strengthen your boundaries, including your emotional boundaries. Now, empaths and highly sensitive people are very aware of other people's feelings, and they tend to not be aware of their own feelings. So what happens is, because they're such good listeners, because they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, they wind up being the person everyone dumps their toxic energy onto, because they'll take it and they'll listen because, again, they have a good heart, they want to help people, but it leaves them feeling extremely drained. Know your emotional boundaries, what's healthy for you and what crosses a line to something that is not healthy for you. And again, don't be afraid to hurt someone's feelings by excusing yourself or changing the conversation. Now, I know that boundaries are hard for empaths and highly sensitive people because they don't like conflict. They don't like to feel like they've hurt someone. The truth is that anytime we put down a boundary, someone's feelings are slightly hurt all the time. And that happens even when we don't put a boundary down. Someone's feelings are hurt, but it's not someone else's feelings, it's usually yours, because you're hurting yourself by putting yourself in situations that are emotionally draining to you. So recognize that it's okay to have that boundary. It's okay to care for your emotional health just as much as you care for the emotional well-being of others. Number 3, strengthen your self-awareness. Because empaths feel so much and they absorb so much of everyone around them, it can be hard to distinguish when someone else's personality ends and yours begins. But that can be strengthened by self-awareness, by asking yourself questions while you're in situations. Use your internal dialogue to strengthen your self-awareness. How am I feeling right now? Well, I'm sensing someone is sad. Who do I think that is? What do I feel? What am I feeling right now? How are our feelings distinct? Where's my personality ending and theirs beginning? What do I need right now? So in other words, ask yourself questions that help you to check in with yourself. Once you do that, that leads to tip number 4, which is really learning to trust your gut instinct. If you get a sense that you're around a toxic person, an empath or a highly sensitive person oftentimes will want to give the person the benefit of the doubt. No, they didn't mean that. No, they couldn't possibly have wanted to hurt me on purpose. No, they didn't say that on purpose. I'm imagining things. I'm being too sensitive. They will give the person the benefit of the doubt, even though their gut instinct is telling them something's wrong. This person is not good for you. In order to protect ourselves, we have to learn to trust our gut instinct. Our gut instinct will never lead us wrong. It's the voice that comes after our gut instinct that often tries to get us to not listen to our gut instinct, and that voice always leads us wrong. And my 5th tip is to learn to validate yourself. Strengthen your internal validation. I say this because a lot of empaths and highly sensitive people did not receive enough validation as a child. So now they're around a toxic person, they have this red flag, their gut is telling them something, but if they don't have that trust in their gut yet, they'll ask someone, they'll ask a friend or a family member, and that person may not see what the empath or highly sensitive person is seeing, because toxic people often don't broadcast how toxic they are. Their toxicity flies under the radar. So then you get your friend or family member saying something like, are you sure he or she did that on purpose? Are you sure you're not, being paranoid or looking too deeply into that? And if you hear that and you don't have enough trust and you allow yourself to be guided by external validation, then you run the risk of being around a toxic person that your gut instinct is telling you is toxic, but you run the risk of staying because other people don't see the toxicity. Whereas if you strengthen your internal validation, you will know, you will trust how you feel. You won't need someone else to tell you how to feel or how to react or how you should view it, because you will have your inner compass as your guide. Those 5 tips can help you if you are an empath or a highly sensitive person.